Welcome to the Intermittent Gentleman. Today we're taking a look at the QSP Penguin. A little bit of a spoiler alert, go out and buy this knife. I'm always looking for the best value for money on the market, and this knife is probably one of the best buys of 2020. But let's jump right in and get some of those specs out of the way. So this knife has a 3 1/8 inch long D2 steel blade. So the blade's coming in just a little bit right over 3 there. And its blade stock is pretty good. It is, I believe, a little bit over 0.1. I think it's 0.12. 0.12. The handle length is 4 inches long, and it's only about 0.46, I believe 0.45. Inches thick there. The handle is made of green linen micarta. It has full stainless steel liners, and it does come in some other color variations as well. When it's closed, it's a pretty good form factor that disappears in the pocket. And I believe at the tallest point right here, it's only about 1 1/4 inches tall. Yeah, coming in right at 1 1/4. Now, let's see how much, what the weight is here. So this is coming in at 3.21 ounces. And that's about, I think, 90 grams. 91 grams. It is running on a pivot with bronze washers. It is a liner lock type, and it does come with a reversible deep carry tip up pocket clip. But let's go ahead and do a couple size comparisons here. So here you have your standard black Sharpie. Let's go ahead and compare it against some other, I'll say, medium size knives. So here we have the Ritter, the Hogue Ritter. This is also the same size as the full-size Benchmade Griptilian. Another flagship model here, very common, is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And another pretty common knife that a lot of people have out there, this is the Ontario Rat 1. I would classify the QSP Penguin as a small medium knife. Let's go ahead and compare to some smaller, very common EDC options out there. So here we have the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. We also have the Spyderco Para 3. And lastly, a common big box store knife. You'll find these at Walmart, Academy, Dunham's, Dick's Sporting Goods. We have the Kershaw Leak. So a little bit longer overall than the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. In length, it's similar to both the Leak and the Para 3 here. So just a quick materials run through. I mentioned that this knife is, its blade steel is D2. Now D2 is a pretty solid everyday carry utility choice. It's becoming very popular in the knife world, and it's found in a lot of budget knives, but it is definitely a pretty good steel. It holds an edge fairly well and is plenty tough for your folding knife duties. It is a semi-stainless steel. It started as a tool steel that was very common in the use of die making applications, and kind of made its way into the knife world. And the reason that it's a semi-stainless is that even though that this steel, or D2, it does have an increased content of the element known as chromium, which increases its corrosion resistance. Because it's an alloy, its composition is a little bit different than the way chromium is used in some other steels. Now, your other steels that you would find in price ranges like D2 would be something like AUS 10, VG10, 154 CM. Those are probably going to be a little bit of a step up in price from same built knife, but different blade steel. Or even, let's say, like AUS 8. All of those are going to have better overall corrosion resistance than D2. But D2 is definitely more corrosion resistance compared to other high carbon steels like 1095 or SK5. Just don't let it get wet and sit wet or damp for an extended period of time. As a good maintenance schedule, aside from when it's directly exposed to water, but a good maintenance schedule or practice is every time you're done sharpening it, wipe it down with a good high percentage rubbing alcohol, let it dry out there, and then give it a fine coat of some sort of oil or synthetic lubricant. Now, also talking about materials, I mentioned earlier that the handles are made of linen micarta. So what micarta is a pressed textile-based material using a composition of linen, epoxy, and some other materials. It is pressed under great pressure and very high heat. But even though it is using like epoxy as kind of like a binding agent, it is a little bit more porous than something like G10 or true carbon fiber. So what this means is this handle will actually kind of change color over the years and get a little of like what I call a micarta patina. Now, I prefer G10 or let's say even aluminum as my go-to handle of choice. But at this price point, this micarta is done pretty well. And now that we've gotten a lot of the kind of technical stuff out of the way, let's talk about what makes this knife a must-buy and such a great value. So let's first talk about price. This knife is a sub $30 knife. Yes, you heard me right, less than $30. Now, this knife is foreign made. It is going to come out of China, but go on any major retailer, online retailer site and try to find a knife with like this same set of specs and materials, and you're going to be pretty hard pressed to find anything in that sub $30 range. Now, going with price as well, the second reason is that the build quality is very good. So if you don't have any a problem buying something made in China, for something coming out of the market there, this knife has really good quality control. Now, obviously, this is just a sample size of one. There may be some QC issues, but taking a look at some forums as well as some other reviews out there, I really haven't heard or seen any major issues. Blade centering is spot on there. The action, as you've seen, is pretty smooth. The only opportunity I see really is that this knife only locks up at about maybe like 1/3 or maybe 2/5 there. The tension on the lock is not super aggressive either. It's very easy to slide over. I would definitely use this knife more so for very light EDC work, opening mail, cutting some paper, opening packages, light food processing, maybe some light fabric or rope or twine cutting as well. The other reason that what makes this knife so great is its overall size. So I mentioned earlier in the size comparisons that I categorize this knife as a medium small knife. Now, with its narrow height, it really lends itself to disappearing in the pocket. And it's also a great coin pocket or fifth pocket knife as well. Let's talk about the blade shape a little bit. So this blade shape is both a positive and a negative. This blade shape is called a sheep's foot profile or a sheep's foot style blade. Now, the good thing about a sheep's foot is that it's pretty unassuming, right? There's not really a defined point. It is a completely straight or flat edge here. And what the flat edge really allows you to do is that the user controls the angle of the cut. So lots of precise control there, because you as the user against a straight edge blade are controlling what angles and depth that you're cutting at. But the only problem is that you're not going to get any type of mechanical advantage on cuts with a knife with maybe more of a conventional style shape or something with different angles and curves. For example, something like the Para 3 here, that has some flat portion or straight portion, decent amount of curvature here in the belly, and comes to a fine point. You're going to get some mechanical advantage from your cuts, whereas the straight edge, really you as the user are setting the angle at which the knife is cutting at. The blade doesn't really have a definitive point, even though, yes, there is a point here. So it's a little bit tougher to accidentally stab something or that you don't want to. But then it also makes it a little bit more difficult when you do need some piercing capability with this sheep's foot profile. Kind of comparing to something like the Para 2 or even like more of a Warncliffe style with the Kershaw leak here, coming to that more very sharp point. But I found that the sheep's foot is still able to kind of penetrate into material. Those quintessential Amazon bags that everything comes in, definitely even with this sheep's foot profile, you are able to kind of like poke into it and start your draw cut there. Now, there are some opportunities with this knife as well, though. So I mentioned that even though the action is very good, the liner lock itself is very easy to push over there, and it is only locking up about at that 1/3, maybe even 2/5 lockup style. So I would definitely, again, just use this knife for some light task EDC. It is foreign made. I mentioned that. It comes from China. Also, on the knife here, you can see that with the reversible pocket clip, the screw holes for the other side have been filled in by screws. So you do get like another set there. However, the screws are not recessed or flush fitting. So they are kind of a little bumpy right there, a little bit of a hot spot. Another thing is that this knife did not come very sharp from the factory. And the thing is, D2 steel, while very good and very friendly in a lot of ways, you know, semi stainless steel, pretty durable, pretty tough, holds good edge retention, is a little bit more difficult to sharpen than some of the other steels out there. If you're not used to sharpening D2, you might find yourself getting a little bit frustrated at first, just to find the right angles and the right stones to utilize. But it's definitely something that any intermittent gentleman, any IG out there can do. But from the factory, the blade did not come very sharp. Now still, if you're in the market for a budget-friendly, decent quality, very smooth action, light-duty EDC knife, then I suggest that you look at the QSP Penguin. Another place where this knife really comes in is Christmas gifts, birthdays, things like that for friends, as well as, let's say, evening out your shopping cart. Let's say you're shopping online somewhere and you've bought the knife that you really saved up for and wanted, but there's a free gift or free shipping or some sort of incentive if you hit a certain basket amount prior to checkout. So you've already purchased and know you want your paramilitary 2 here, but you're only a couple dollars away or a 20 spot away from getting some sort of free gift or incentive, then you'd be hard pressed to find something like the QSP Penguin that's still going to be great value and are still going to be able to use or give away as a gift to a friend than this knife right here. So again, thanks for tuning in. This is the QSP Penguin. Subscribe and like for more content. Be well, have a great day, and stay a gentleman. Intermittently, of course.